Okay. Is it up there?
Yes.
Can you see? Okay. So we've already got a group of people in mind that we naturally feel affection for. So we'll recite these 4 measurables once with these people in mind, and then we're going to grow our group and recite it again. May all sentient beings have happiness in the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachments for friends and hatred for enemies. So in order to get this feeling of affection, this wish for the people that you have affection for to be happy and free of suffering, in order to get that to expand into all sentient beings, we have to work at it. We have to kind of consciously make the effort to start growing that circle. So you think, okay, so you think this group you've got in your mind, and perhaps you just add their friends to it. Maybe you add your friends to it if they aren't already there. And you kind of grow it outward this way. You think of real people that you know, and you expand it. And then you can even expand it to people that maybe you saw in the news that you're worried about, or the situations you're worried about or concerned with. Include all those people. So they may be strangers, but you've got some connection that you've made with them by reading stories about them or hearing their situations, and you feel that heartfelt wish that they were out of that situation, that situation would end. This is on page 34 of those who can't see the screen. Sorry about that. Okay. Now we're going to be sending out love and compassion and joy and the wish for equanimity to this larger group. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And so one of the ways you can think about this, because this is a good meditation to just, to read this verse or something, but then think about how, that everybody feels this way about some people, And so we just keep growing that, that it's not so weird to think about this with strangers. And then the biggest leap is when we're thinking about people we kind of perceive as enemies or very difficult people or people we wish would just disappear, the people we don't like, people we don't agree with, people we think cause trouble for the world, all that kind of thing. That's the hardest group, So we have to really work hard at developing this sense of equanimity, that they're people just like you with different experiences that shape them, different habits of mind that shape them, different points of view. We don't have to agree with them. We don't have to like them to still wish them well. Because if we were all well, we wouldn't be harming each other. When you think about every time we've harmed someone, it starts with the sort of little feeling of, suffering within ourselves, that's what kind of is the condition for harming someone else. There's something that's happening we don't like, or makes us nervous, or whatever it is, or we think we're better than, whatever. And we want to prove it. And of course it backfires, doesn't it? We never look good when we're harming others. As we know, when we look at all the people we consider to be enemies. And in that moment when we're harming someone else with our speech or our facial expressions or our body language, we are that person for them. So we want to really kind of loosen our boundaries of feeling that things have to be strictly based on what people do for us and that we like them. So that takes some reflection. And we have to also reflect on the fact that there's some benefit to the world if we start to think this way. It's not just that we'll suffer less when we don't see groups as whole, things that we have to gear our hearts against, And we have to recognize that we don't have to recognize. I really say those kinds of words a lot. Please ignore them. We don't have to do anything. We might find that it's beneficial if we work on opening our hearts in this way. So, all right. So now let's read the refuge prayer on page 98. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. That 2 or 3 refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the listening to the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I say this every day, like several times, but I say a different version. So sometimes I trip over my own words. All righty. So. So I've been thinking about lots of things this week. It's been an exciting week, mostly listening to a talk by Jay Garfield on Tricycle Magazine about no self. Jay Garfield is a professor of Buddhism at Smith College. He's a frequent translator and commentator on works in this tradition. And he's, and so anyway, I happened to catch him on Tricycle talking about no self. And it's fabulous for those of you who are into that kind of thing. Jack, I think you'll find it very interesting. Anyway, I'll be discussing it on Thursday night because I just like to shake it up. Anyway, but this is the work we're trying to do, is try to develop these 2 wings, right? So we're trying to develop this wing of compassion, or what's our method, skillful means, this understanding that our actions of body, speech, and mind, if we want to stop harm, we really need to understand what states of mind are driving our speech or our actions, or even our thoughts in a direction that isn't skillful, that isn't helpful. And one way to do that is to grow our compassion. So we wouldn't want to treat anybody, the old golden rule kind of method of just, recognizing that treating someone else like in a way that we wouldn't want to be treated is not a path to happiness. Not going to work. Never going to work. That most, we can feel a sense of getting even. Well, that isn't really all that grand. Doesn't last long. And usually what it leads to is regret. So, and then the other wing is that wisdom wing of trying to really understand reality as it is, not as it appears to us. And this is a much more subtle concept. It's harder to kind of get at. It's not difficult in words. It's just difficult in letting go of the habit of grasping at appearance, and thinking that our perspective on whatever is appearing before us, all the people, all the things, understanding that it is completely through our own filters. It's as if we're making up stories about everybody. And it's based on a fundamental error of thinking, which is that people and things exist from their own side, that they have an inherent quality that is them, that just, you're born with, you die with, and it doesn't change. It's just, that's it. And the Buddha said that's where all our disturbing emotions come from, is this mistaken idea of how we exist. So if we're looking at how people appear to us, what is this thing that we do? Um, this creation of stories around everything we're interacting with. Anybody caught themselves doing that lately?
A lot all the time.
Welcome to my club. so, so when we notice that, oh, I'm interpreting this from what I'm assuming about this, And so if we can at least just kind of go, oh, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I've already made up a story. I've already drawn some conclusions. I've already made somebody says something to me, and I'm already spinning out with this whole story of why they said it to me, and what does it mean, and da 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 da. So what can we do with that if we notice?
Ask myself if it's true.
Yeah, that's always a good place to start. Do you know what you're thinking about? Do you know what you're talking about? Or are you speculating? And then are we supporting that speculation with sort of this, I know what they're thinking. I know what they're trying to do. We have this certain certainty about it. Where does that come from? I'm sorry, past experiences, ego, habit. How about the need to know? We were talking about uncertainty last week. How comfortable are we with uncertainty? Not so great, is it? And so even in our interactions with people, we want a certain element of certainty. We kind of want it to be predictable. And so we will fill in gaps of our knowledge to act as if we know how this is unfolding or what it means or whatever. What does that do with our interactions, to our interaction?
contaminates them.
In what way does it contaminate them?
We're biased.
I didn't hear it.
We're biased.
We're biased.
Hmm.
And what's the bias from?
So,
Our point of view, right? Whatever, however we want to qualify that, or label it. But it's from our point of view. So we're not actually like reading the mind of the other person, right? And then knowing what they're thinking. We've made it up based on maybe our past experience, based on this habit of thinking that, we know. But mostly it's a way to feel safe.
You just fill in the blanks.
We just fill in the blanks because we don't like the blanks. The blanks are uncertainty. And we don't like that.
but it limits the flow of possibility.
It totally does that. It totally cuts us off from what's possible. And not only that, it cuts us off from what is. We've made up a story now that we think is the truth. So what does that do to whatever happens in the interaction?
Creates tension.
It creates tension.
It pushes it to go one way or the other.
It forces it to go one way or another. It's directional in a way. What else does it do?
Habit of judging the people for making that's what.
Yeah, because what are we looking for when if it reinforces our habit? What are we doing with our view during the interaction?
Trying to prove that it's correct.
Trying to prove it's correct. Looking for what supports our theory. What does it ignore?
Really happening.
What's really happening? And the whole picture and the possibilities. And just whatever is. We do this so fast. It's like we've done it all our lives. It's very habitual. It's very hard to even catch ourselves, to kind of go, I've created a story here. But we can learn to kind of go, well, look at the story I've created here. How do we do that? How do we recognize this is what's going on?
You have to pay attention to what you think.
Yeah, you have to pay attention to what you're thinking. You really do have to notice the conversation that's in your head that's going on behind the conversation or interaction you're having with the other person. Yeah.
Sometimes the body language says a lot, like your tension.
Yeah.
That you're uncomfortable with the situation.
Yeah. So body language does tell us a lot. So getting familiar with our body language helps us understand that there's something going on for us within this situation. Now it can be uncomfortable. It can be, I want to say haughty. We don't really use that word, do we? Not like haughty.
Arrogant.
Yeah, there can be this little like, I'm going to see how much better I am than this person. Either I'm better dressed, have better language, have better, I don't know, all these stupid things that we think are important. So we just, so that can be there. So there can be a feeling of, I don't know what that looks like exactly, trying to think of my own body. I think maybe, this in Tibetan Buddhism, they define these things as a puffed up sense of yourself. And so maybe that's what we do. Yeah, we puff ourselves up physically. We feel, the breath, the chest expands. We feel kind of like, I don't know. You can tell I never did the drama department. But, this is the thing. We really want to be aware that it is useful to notice what's going on in our bodies and in our thoughts. And then correct them when we're realizing they're making something up, that I don't know if that's true, that I'm guessing, that I'm drawing a conclusion that I'm better than. Do I really want to be that person? Is that even, what does that even mean? Or we think I'm worse than, oh, look how brilliant this person is, or beautiful or coordinated. And then we have to really, kind of look at, okay, why am I, first of all, comparing? Whether it's myself with them or others with them or whatever, what's this habit? We really want to look. If we're very competitive people, we really want to look at how often we're comparing.
Being non-judgmental is a good idea?
No,
No?
No.
Okay.
I'm teasing you, Steve. Yeah, that's the end goal, right? In the meantime, while we are being judgmental, we want to see the trends, the themes, the patterns of our habits. So we can see if we have a tendency to have ourselves feel better than, that's why we like our thoughts to go. Oh, I'm better than this guy, Or we like to see proof that we're the worst possible human being on the planet. That can also be a habit, and it can depend on who you're interacting with, So, because this view, first of all, has nothing to do with what's actually happening.
That's what I was thinking, because now the person that we're interacting with is gonna act through their filter.
Yeah.
So we're not really ever seeing
Each
the
other.
true person. I don't think. I mean,
Yeah. So who are we interacting with?
it's only the fact that we want to fix ourselves and how we're thinking and.
So who are we interacting with?
So,
Ourselves. It's all really going on in our head, in our body, and very little actual connection.
Why are we doing that?
Why do we persist in doing that? It's the question, isn't it? And the Buddha's answer was because we have this innate sense of a self that we have to put above everybody else. Well, not even above, but we,
Reserve. Like reserve self.
this sense of self. Well, that's why we reinforce it, because we're afraid of non-existing. So we grasp at a self, partly because it sort of looks like that, doesn't it? You can it's easy to kind of hold on to stuff. Society reinforces it. How does society reinforce it?
well, there's a magazine with the title.
Self. I used to have a subscription. I was young, stupid. No, but yeah. So it's like, and we use the word self a lot. And people have brought that up. Well, how can we get through this if we're always using the word self?
We want to be permanent.
We want so desperately to be permanent and always exist. And this is not the way to achieve it, because you can't achieve it. But we hold on to ourselves. We really want to make ourselves sort of king of the universe, and the only way to do that is to see ourselves as better than others, safer than others, better looking than others. And so we really get upset when we see people that we think, oh, maybe they're the ones that are better, all that bias we have, and a lot of it's against ourselves. Yeah, Randy.
Doesn't that also come from the way that you're raised as being, your parents treat you like you're the center of the universe from the time you're really small?
I think sometimes, that's our karma, that we were attracted to those kind of parents. So we have that kind of upbringing.
Only the underlying emotion would be fear. What are you
Fear.
afraid of?
We're afraid of not existing. We even have a brain that's whole purpose is to alert us to danger, which is not a stupid thing, but it's this Oh, I just want to go to Jay Garfield. Okay. So what Jay Garfield brought up this week in this podcast was it might be helpful, instead of using the word self, to see ourselves as persons.
To see yourselves as what?
Persons. I'm a person.
Like a third point of view.
No, I'm a person
Like everybody else.
like everybody else.
Mm.
You know, just shifting that perspective, that label from something that is very singular to something that's a collective can help us kind of counter this habit, you know, so that we, you know, it can help us look at our view of us in the world as being one of many, not us and them, you know, to really reinforce that sense of we, you know. Now this takes a lot more reflection and discussion, but it's an interesting place to start, you know, with just, okay, what are you? I'm a person. You know, a person is a label we give to a body and mind. That's what distinguishes persons from rocks. It's the mind part. It has form, but as far as we know, it has no mind. You know. So
Like John Lennon's song, Imagine All the People.
yep. It's really it's so important that we reinforce a habit of we rather than me, mine, I. Those are all convenient terminology for language, for, you know, communication, but we don't, and some languages don't have pronouns, you know. We weren't born in that kind of society. That's sort of a clue about our karma writing. So, you know, but, you know, again, it's kind of telling about habits. So, but this desire to feel that you exist and that you know, you have to protect that existence, and that, you know, it's like when you go to a big party and you feel invisible, you know, and sometimes that feels great when you really would like to disappear, and sometimes it feels terrible because you just, you know, it's like, you know, it's like no one sees you, you know, and that's a feeling of non-existence, and if we're not entirely comfortable with that. Now, some of us are more comfortable with that than the opposite. You know, we're perfect, you know, we're perfectly comfortable in a group where nobody knows us. But that's not usually a good indication of a healthy sense of self. You know, that just sense of, you know, I'm okay. Back to I and self. Yep.
Healthy sense of self.
Yep.
Is that healthy?
Yep. It is from the point of view, you know, and this is but a healthy sense of person. You know, it's really trying to change, you know, it's like the Buddha didn't say, because you are a we, that doesn't even make sense, does it? You are a we. We exist as a collective, you know, that we need to feel valuable within that collective, and that everyone's equally valuable. There's no need to prove it. You know, it's like the Buddha never says you have to prove yourself worthy to be happy. That's not in the, that's nowhere in the teachings. It's not,
attainable.
is that attainable?
Yeah.
What? What is what attainable?
To feel that way, to believe that.
Yep. That's through equanimity. Really developing equanimity. That we are people, that because we're people, it's reasonable. We want to have happiness and not want to suffer. That's just an intelligent conclusion. We're totally mistaken about how to go about that. We don't have very skillful paths, methods, tools. So we have to develop one tool that we can start to recognize that voice inside, having conversations when it's belittling us. We want to be able to respond to that voice with, that's not always true. Sometimes that's never true. We want to recognize that we make up stories about ourselves that are narrow. We find one quality, or it's the opposite of a quality. Quality always sounds good to me, but I guess they're not always good. So if we look at a neutral quality, we have bad qualities, good quality, neutral quality. But we pick one thing of either a habit of behavior, a habit of mind, habit of speech, and what do?
We're analyst critic. Blow it up, exaggerate.
We blow it up, we magnify it, we think that's it. That's me. That's that permanent me. Okay. How's that accurate? Is there anything accurate about it? So that's when we have those thoughts, we want to go, yeah, that's not true. That's not true of anybody. Now, what comes up in your mind to argue against that?
So we're trying to believe something about ourselves. That whatever good quality we may have, try to remember that instead of all the negative. Well,
I don't really answer the question.
okay. What's the question again?
Oh no, I've been caught out.
Impermanence. This too shall pass. Nothing is permanent.
Hmm.
You're asking about the good or bad qualities, that they're not permanent.
And never were. It's not even that we can change them. They weren't that in the first place. You can't point to one instance of behavior of body, speech, or mind and say, that's me. That's just stupid. I mean, it really is illogical. It makes no sense at all. But we do it all the time. We make a mistake and then immediately, it's like, oh, I'll never get this. No way. Yeah.
I think it's reinforced by repetitive behavior. So it's
Yes.
not just one instance, but for somebody who has an addiction of any sort.
Or just be human. Yeah. We can take it to the extreme, the addicts. How about you and me? Maybe you're not an addict, but we all have repetitive habits, don't we? That's why they're called habits. It's sort of like, that's the meaning of a habit. So we do want to check up on our habits and go, no, that's not a particularly skillful habit, but it's not you all the time. It doesn't even matter, if you have a habit. It is not you. It is an instance of you again and again and again. So we keep trying to sew ourselves together into a thing that doesn't change, And when we're in a good mood about ourselves, we sew in the good parts. And when we're in a bad mood about ourselves, we just sew in the bad parts. And then we go, that's proof. First of all, what's the point of wasting your time that way? Anybody want a Raggedy Ann doll? No. So we really want to look at the voices in our head and see when we're making up stories about ourselves and others, about people.
If that'd be useful to have confidence in yourself, I know I can walk a mile, or I know I can write a paper.
So these are the ways we can counter the mind that says, I can't do anything. Or I'm always an idiot. Is to just say, well, that's not true. And can anybody do everything? Do we have time? First problem. We don't have time. So why do we judge ourselves if we don't have the time to do everything? You ever have that kind of mind? Oh, I ought to be able to do this. I ought to be able to do this by now. We do that with our spiritual practice.
Well, when thought arises, good or bad, to say, is that true?
Right. And if it's not true, to come up with countering thought or just drop the story. If it's a strong habit, you may need to have some reasons to counter it because there's a part of you buying into it every time. You're really reinforcing it. So it's helpful to be able to say, that's not true, and I'm not listening. I just say I'm not listening a lot. Thank you for sharing, but I'm not going to listen. I have to learn how to be polite, so I figure I might as well be polite when I say that, because that's not my strong suit. So, so this is, we really need to see how we make up stories all the time, and they're not helping. Like sometimes we make up stories, we're daydreaming. What does that do for our future? The daydream at the time you're daydreaming can be fun.
Sets an expectation for your future.
It sets an expectation up. Yeah.
What you have to achieve.
And what happens? Are your daydreams better than reality? Come on, tell the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Always. I mean, or they're way worse than reality. We also have those daydreams about the worst that could happen,
They cause me to forget what I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Like
They're very distracting, aren't they? And we get caught in a story that we imagine that happiness lives there. Well, great, but you can't live in that. So, it is not helpful. We can, wish. It's different from hope. This is really an if only mind. If only this would happen, that would be delightful, Well, it's not happening. So you're not living your life when you're caught up in a fantasy realm, Now it's even different from looking at possibilities. Possibilities need to be kind of logical, They have to have some basis in reality. Like we can daydream about, I don't know, becoming the ruler of a beautiful island in a beautiful, place, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good luck with that, And we really can get trapped by our fantasy life because real life is going to keep disappointing us. And then we just get grumpy, And we also start blaming externals. What the, people acted better if, if I was treated fairly in my job, if I got paid the right amount, if I don't know, we can just go on and on and on, blaming others for our lack of contentment or our lack of success or our lack of whatever it is we're striving for. So, we want to see when we're wasting our time in our mind and change the direction of our thinking. Just kind of go, well, I'm going to drop that story. That's not true. That's not helping. Yeah, that'd be nice, but it's total make believe, whatever. It's not a good habit. So like when you pause before you enter your house to, re-enter your family or whatever, you don't want to be sitting there in your car thinking, oh, won't it be nice if they treat me like this? That's not correcting your motive. That's not getting you in the right place. You really just want to think about, who do I want to be when I enter that door with my family? I want to remember what's important. Let's, I want to leave my work behind. Blah, blah, blah. You want to shift gears from this or that to what's going to be happening then, so that you can shake off, the traffic, whatever, because that can make you tense before you get home, So these are things that if we do a reset through the day, can help us be more of a accepting receptacle for what's actually going on.
How do you do that reset though, if you're really stuck in that one mindset?
You have to keep arguing with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I can reset from the day, but how do you reset from a significant trauma?
Okay. One of those things, you can't just reset a significant trauma, right? We all know that. But you can catch yourself realizing, I'm dwelling in this trauma. So you get help, with dealing with the trauma, but you also are able to recognize, okay, I'm feeding the trauma now, but like when you get angry, you can feed the anger by keep going over and over and over. You can do the same thing with trauma. So you need to be able to recognize, okay, that moment's passed, take a few deep breaths, reset a little to be able to go and be, present with what is happening now. The good thing about, an event that's traumatic is that it's not happening now. What's difficult is that's difficult, but also, we have things that we keep getting re-traumatized by, and that causes a really intense difficulty. And so we definitely need help with that, but we're better prepared if we can work with our minds and recognize that what happens externally doesn't define us. It isn't about me. We all are vulnerable. We can all be victims and traumatized. Really, it's all a matter of what karma ripens for you in this life. It's not about, we don't have to take it personally. Like, I did something wrong and this is why this happened. It might be karmically true. But that has nothing to do with the fact that we are vulnerable. Of course, we're vulnerable. We're in samsara. We die. We can be killed. We can be maimed. We can be raped. We can be abused with language. We can be, discriminated against in jobs and in schools, and on and on and on. All of these things can happen because we're talking about beings with samsaric minds, including ourselves. We're not enlightened beings treating each other with pure compassion, love, generosity, all that kind of stuff. So when we've been traumatized, it really helps to get help from people who deal with trauma. And then also going, oh, this person's going to be re-traumatized. We have to go, okay, this is the right person for me. You seek more help, different help, whatever. You keep looking. And then you also can keep reminding yourself that this event isn't my life. These repeated events isn't me. you know, just being able to have your own, this is that healthy sense of being a person. Yeah, people can hurt each other, they do. But we do not have to take it on as an evaluation of who we are. You know, we don't have to make it into something it is not. Well, what do those actions from the other person, the person doing the traumatizing, it reflects more about them than it does the person who's being harmed, okay, in this life, you know. So what's a good response to that? And not in the event. Don't mistake me. Is compassion. Because that person's setting up a whole, you know, all those negative karma to ripen in the future. That person doesn't understand at all what leads to happiness. The person only understands what leads to suffering. And we don't have to take that on. We don't have to become that too. You know, and sometimes it helps to read about people who, or read stories from people who've been in great trauma to see how their resilience is. How did they think? How did they interpret this experience that kept them from, you know, destroying their own sense of anything, safety? The fact that things are uncertain, meaning I'm okay in this moment, I may not be okay in the next moment, is part of the challenge of the truth of suffering and all pervasive suffering. We're all vulnerable. But if we live from a place of fear that there cannot be any good moments, now that we know there can be really bad moments, then we're just creating that scenario in our mind all the time, and we will, in fact, suffer. You know? So it's bad enough that we have to suffer from harm. We do not have to harm ourselves on top of that. Oh. Fortunately, these days, there's a lot of discussion about trauma. You know, there are a lot of people who who really look into the long-term effects, who look into what is helpful for people who've experienced it. And there are lots of different techniques to help with it. Well, one of the important things is to look at what your thoughts are telling you, and if they're true or helpful or not. You know, if you're telling yourself that somehow you deserved it because you did the wrong thing, whatever, then we're just reinforcing that trauma. So being aware of how we think and how we physically are responding to things is a really good tool for us to work on our habits of mind, develop resilience, develop joy in spite of the fact that we've been harmed.
The word face keeps coming up when I listen to you talking about this in particular. The face, not necessarily in a deity, but the face that there is more to be than that. Yeah, victim.
Well, this is what's so interesting. When we talk about refuge and in the beginning, the true refuge is Dharma, hearing the teachings, taking refuge in the teachings, the resultant refuge is when we've internalized, when it is how we think, how we act, how we talk. We take refuge in ourselves. And so that's part of why having a healthy sense of self is important, is having confidence that I can do this. I can handle this. I don't know what I'm doing, so I need to learn some things in order to do this. you know, but I've seen myself change my whole life. Change is possible, you know, and sometimes we have to remind ourselves of that when we're stuck, you know. We have to remind ourselves that it is, in fact, doable. And people do it all the time. That's why sometimes reading stories about other people who've survived things that we can't imagine surviving, you know, is helpful to really see how, oh, okay, because we're talking about mind here. Like Christopher Reeve, you know, had a traumatic physical event, right? He couldn't do anything really for his body. He had money, so he had the resources to, you know, keep breathing, all that kind of stuff. But what he worked on was his mind, how to respond to this, you know, and, you know, and it's not that he could go on, you know, finally one day he said, okay, enough, you know, this body, just letting go of this body. You know, but the point is that it's the mind that determines whether you have moments of joy, the mind that determines whether you have moments of wisdom. It's the mind that determines these things. It's not what has happened to us. It's how we respond, you know.
And that takes training.
It takes training, practice, training, forgiveness, training, forgiveness. You know, it's like going, oh yeah, there I go again, down the old, you know, rabbit hole, you know. So, you know, kindness is so important. Kindness to everyone, kindness to ourselves. I mean, this is the thing. This is where thinking of how people are, you know, we're all in this mess. You know, the Buddha said we're all in the same boat. You know, this is why equanimity and compassion and love should be universal, because it just, we're no different except in our ideas of what might make us happy and get us out of suffering. And mostly we're wrong. And we're wrong because we have this fundamental mistaken idea about how we exist. That there's some permanent self that has to be protected. Instead of recognizing we're a series of events of, it's like, you know, a mind and body constantly changing. You know, we can label that a person, but that's all that is. It's a label of a person. And we all have that in common. So accepting that we do not know what the future looks like can give us strength. Is then we don't have to focus on predicting the future. You know, we can take it as it comes. So we, you know, we need to set time aside for ourselves to reflect on things, you know, to look at situations. Maybe you've got situations going on that you're not thrilled about. So you want to look at them, say, what am I contributing to this discomfort? You know, is there something I can do to maybe shift that for myself? You know, we can't control other people's reactions and whatever, you know. Do I need to change something? Do I spend too much time doing this instead of that? You know, should I spend more time in self-reflection? Should I spend more time with the kind of entertainment that brings meaning to my life? You know, do I spend enough time helping others? You know, everybody has limited time. You know, so we really do have to juggle and kind of decide, okay, is this working for me? Not, because it changes, doesn't it? You can go along and this is great, and then it changes. Maybe something you're doing is no longer available to do. So we need to be able to go, okay, but I have a hole now. I'd like to replace that with something else, and find that. And that takes reflection on what is it what is the hole? Because if we keep doing exactly what we've always been doing, I mean, and that's a relative term, meaning like the last 6 months, and we're not happy with what we're doing, then, we should reassess what we're doing. Like if you hate your job, anybody hate their job? Maybe everybody likes their job. You hate your job. Okay, not so much. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. How much control do you have over your job?
You don't have to stay if you don't want to.
That's one way. That's a fact. Are you going to find one that you like?
If you're gonna leave, I mean, you should.
Oh, you
What's the
should.
pros-
There's
what's
no
the
expectation
pros?
there.
Why leave though?
Well,
Why would you let-
that's something to reflect on. Because no job is going to be perfect or fulfilling or have no people you don't like in it. Whether they're the people you work with or the people that you serve, because we don't like everybody. Oh, well.
And also jobs that you like can turn into jobs that you don't like in a second.
Just like relationships.
That's what's happened to me.
Yes. Yes. And that's why accepting that things change. And we can't predict when. We don't even know the cause of that. I mean, it's just like, oh, okay, so I've been happy. That's why we have to notice what's going on in our bodies and our minds and go, this is not working for me anymore. But then we also have to look, is there some way I'm responding to this that is causing me suffering? So that we can maybe work on that while we're job hunting, but we still need to look at what part am I playing in this, suffering, dissatisfaction.
Maybe you could fix it.
Yes, because you might be able to fix it. You can't fix the job, well, never. We can't fix external things, but we can fix how we respond. You can change jobs, but you're not going to find perfect ones. So we have to look first to see if what it is we want out of a job. So this in the chat, it says, I like my job, but I hate one colleague. Guess what the odds are that any job you go to, there's going to be one colleague you really can't stand. Have anybody worked in a situation where they liked everybody they worked with? I mean, I remember one time a social worker told me, I worked in an inpatient substance abuse hospital for teenagers. I can't believe I survived to tell the tale. The social worker came in one day. She goes, I hate all my clients. They're all kids. Fully aware of that, just sort of like, I don't like any of them, So we have to have a realistic vantage point of understanding that that's going to happen. Where, you just, so we have to develop an ability to have our satisfaction based on something else other than externals, so that we can recognize when we need to change jobs, if there's one available, or when we need to change ourselves.
They could change back and then you can like it again.
Yep. That's why uncertainty is something we have to get comfortable with and not think that the universe is going to get itself in some sort of shape that helps us.
It's also the importance of equanimity.
Yep.
That we, like Jack said, that too shall pass.
Mm-hmm.
once we develop that, then we could cope with whatever discomfort we're having.
But that comes a lot from this understanding that our sense of meaning, our sense of worth, all those things come from within, not from without. Other people's opinions can be useful, but we need to go within. We have to develop inner wisdom about, what actually is meaningful. Because there are going to be circumstances that you find yourself in where nothing's giving you that. Either your job's not very meaningful, but that's what you got, and you got to deal with what you got. And then you have to, they're the things that you want to recognize as a habit. You want it to become a habit that you've got good conditions. If you have good conditions, rejoice in them while you have them. Use them well. Don't get caught up in the details of not so great. So we want to really work on that kind of understanding of how things are, because that's just a very, superficial understanding of how things are. But it really helps, So it's when we have those thoughts about that colleague wasn't there, like this job would be so much better, to recognize that doesn't help. Thinking that way doesn't help. Are you going to shoot her? Probably not. Let's hope not. So, that's not an effective strategy to deal with it. Maybe you need to find some common ground. Find something that reminds you it's another person, with different experiences, different views, different work ethics, whatever. And then you think about things like, if that person came up to me tomorrow and gave me $1,000, would I hate him as much? Because we see them as an obstacle right now. So we want to kind of go, okay, maybe I should need to let go of my grip, this idea of a person as an obstacle, and don't hope for the $1,000. It's more of an exercise of recognizing that our opinions of people can change on a just something happens and we just see them differently. Oh, they help me. Then they haven't changed. You've just benefited. So and we can make ourselves truly miserable by focusing on what we don't like.
I agree. And many people at your work, maybe a couple hundred people, and there's only a couple that you disagree with or are not comfortable with. But pay attention to the ones that.
That's right. Yeah. And pay attention to all the parts of your life that, that you're enjoying, that you find meaning. Yep.
Keep thinking about the federal workers who felt it so secure in their jobs and, this was what it was going to be. And then all of a sudden they got down. Yeah.
This is the uncertainty, and it's been repeated again and again and again through time. World War I breaks out, World War II breaks out. I remember when IBM for the first time started laying off people. I lived in North Carolina. IBM had a big headquarters there, and they had a reputation of never, it was a great place to work because you were never going to be laid off. That changed. So this idea that we have the safe job, the safe relationship, the safe body, the safe whatever, that's nothing to hang your hat on, as they say, because it changes. And it just naturally changes over time. If you live long enough, your body's not going to be your friend. You know, your mind might not even be your friend if you haven't worked on it. So, you know, I mean, this is the thing. Change is what happens. Sometimes it's change for the better. You know, it's like, you know, they have people who kind of come into their own when they retire, because their whole life they've spent in this role, and now they go, let's see who could, you know, and they kind of just blossom. You know, it's just so it's, you know, so it's not like aging is a, you know, it is a death sentence. However, it's not it's not that it's all bad, you know. So, you know, but things like thinking it's never going to get okay. And that can happen so often in a catastrophe, you know, like all the federal workers and all the, you know, just all the upheaval, all these natural disasters with the climate and with the fires and floods and earthquakes and gosh, heat and state sinking, you know, all this kind of stuff, you know, it's because that might not get better. It might get hotter. It might get, you know, more floods. It may be, you know, all that kind of stuff. We need to understand that our ability to be okay, our ability to have moments of joy, our ability to have things that, you know, of meaning, our ability to whatever is all available to us, even though that's going on too. You know, it's like when you see war zones and you see pictures of kids playing, you know. So as adults, we need to understand if we should draw from that, you know, you know, we need relief. And sometimes the only relief we can have is mental relief. So we need to, you know, tap into moments, you know,
Like meditating.
well, like meditating. So if you don't have a person to hug, you know, or even if you have a person to hug, then you can meditate, you know, and discover that inner strength that we have, not in our inner goodness, you know, the love we have for being, you know, like it's really good news that we feel bad for people when they suffer. This is a good quality that we can feel joy when people are feeling joyous, you know, that it's, you know, that some of these, they're kind of contagious. You know, that's a good thing about ourselves. And we want to tap into those things when we need it. We want to tap into opportunities like, okay, the situation is horrid. And there's no painting over that. You know, what can I do to be of help? You know, shift your focus. Just, you know, how can I be of help? It's just, it's available, and we have really good skills at this. We come with them. Children, you see children all the time reaching out to someone who's upset, and they want to help. You know, they come back. You know, they bring you their snack. You know, and you know, and if all we see are the sticky fingers on that snack, or we, you know, or the fact that that little child patting us on the back doesn't get it, we're going to miss these opportunities. So it's all workable. But there's the truth of suffering. So we don't want to think that somehow having inner peace of mind means there's no suffering. Not going to happen in cyclic existence. It's by definition, you know, uncontrolled birth and death. And what's in between? aging and illness. It's all very amusing because we're so attached to it. So one of the things that we can use, get my cheat sheet here. So the different things that we can rely on, and if you've taken the Discovering Buddhism class, Transforming Problems into Happiness, you've read the the little text by Lama Zopa Rinpoche on that. It's talking about what can you draw upon in the Buddhist path, if you happen to be Buddhist. So, anything that's terrible that happens, we can remind ourselves that this is why we want to renounce the suffering of samsara. We want to get out. Don't be attached to this kind of existence because, we don't have to be. So, and put more effort into those tools that we can use to get out, which like meditation, reading the teachings, reflecting on the teachings, meditate some more. It's just really building up the tools in our mind stream of trying to understand how things are, because this can help us get rid of expectation somehow that the world's going to give us what we want. Because it's not. It's not devoid of happiness. We know that. But it's not the reason we're dissatisfied isn't the world. It's our response to things. It's our expectation that there shouldn't be any suffering. So acceptance of the truth of suffering, acceptance of our role in that, the cause of suffering. So that's one way to reflect when something hits us. First we have to kind of go, ooh, I've just been hit in the face. Then having these teachings, relying on these teachings that say, yeah, well, we have an explanation for that. And guess what? Really wanting to help others is a good way out. That really thinking about that I want to become enlightened so I can truly be of benefit to others, that that we can use that kind of mind, that I really want to develop my mind of other concern, of caring about all these people that these things are happening to as well, and not focused on my own suffering. Recognizing cause and effect, really understanding that nothing happens to us that we didn't create the cause for. It's just not instant karma. It's just, and all of us, like everybody on this planet created the cause to live on a planet that has ground that can turn to jelly and earthquakes, that has tornadoes, that has hurricanes, that has floods, that has volcanoes, that has tsunamis. They're not just little floods, right? Big ones, that these are part of our collective situation here, and maybe we don't meet those conditions in this life where, we lose our homes or, our lives due to these events, but that's, we just haven't met that condition. Doesn't mean we didn't create the cause for it. It's just that it's not ripening in this life. So having compassion, not that feeling of like, well, you idiot, you build a house on Miami Beach, it's going to sink, or it's going to get hit by a hurricane. Why do you, that is, not the mind we want to practice. We want to think about how, wow, this is part of the, thinking, oh, I can live in this perfect place, this idyllic thing, and I'll be safe. I'm rich enough. I'm going to be safe. And it's just not true.
I'm old enough, I'm gonna get Social Security.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Here I am. This is my year. I turn 70 next August. I'm going, okay. Yay.
Yeah.
I can live as a nun and not starve. Yeah, right. Glad I have savings. you know? So, yeah, I mean, it's like hilarious to me, you know? And, I almost feel like apologizing the whole country going, it's probably my fault. But that's that inflated sense of self. That's just stupid. But this is, it's this like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember Geshe Geller telling me, don't worry about that. You'll have your practice. So, there we go. To
Did
think
always-
about all the people, that this will be mentally sort of, an obstacle they can't even get themselves through. And it will ruin their lives. So having great compassion for that, that I'm so fortunate to have other tools in my toolkit that I can use so I don't end up in that kind of suffering state. Understanding that things don't have inherent existence, that they are empty of inherent existence, that all things are empty of inherent existence. What does that allow for? We've talked a little bit about it. It's not permanent, right? It can change. Also, we all see people blossom in times of crisis. They somehow the crisis is their opportunity to really benefit others. And we're so grateful to them. But they're experiencing the same, like all those firefighters are out there fighting fires and their homes burnt down. And they're still out there fighting fires. Same in flood zones, all the EMTs, oh yeah, they're all helping people, and they're the tangible stuff of their lives have been washed away or burned down or, so it's, it's like, it isn't just this. All sorts of lives happen within that context. So how they respond to it is going to determine their inner peace, or whether how fast they can have moments of, happiness again, moments of joy, because they haven't closed themselves off to it. None of this is easy. It's just practice. Catching yourself at the moment going, oh, look at the way I'm thinking. That's not going to help at all. So I think I'll not listen. I'll, do what you need to do to change your focus. And that takes practice. And you go 5 minutes later, you go, oh, look what I'm, and you do it again, So, things that we worry about are going to keep popping up, right? So we have to do it again and again and again. That's okay. That doesn't mean you fail. It's just a process, So, and then that thing will go away because it's impermanent, and then we'll just find something new. Have to keep working with it. So don't give up hope. Our minds are totally changeable. Our habits are totally changeable, and we've changed many in our lives. So when you think you can't change a habit, look back. You have changed habits. There's proof in your own life that you can change. So, alrighty. So, next Friday night is, we're going to do Guru Puja. Is next Friday night the 28th?
Yes.
Okay, so that's Losar. That's Tibetan New Year. It's also the anniversary of Lama Yeshe, the original founder, who's behind me somewhere. He passed away in 1984. And so, but he passed away on Losar. So we're going to do Guru Puja at 7. So what else do I need to know? And then Sunday, same old, same old. Thursday, same old, same old. you know. So exciting. The same old thing. Yeah,
A pilgrimage. That's exciting.
so. Look at all these perfect things in chat. So then Brian Burns, who is a member here, you may have seen him, may not, but he's up there. Hi, Brian. He's teaching today, right, at 3:30? Okay,
There's also a pilgrimage.
a second. Are you trying to unmute? You're not, but you're not succeeding. Okay. But today at 3:30, he's teaching on Kuan Yin or Chenrei Zig or Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion here as part of the Theosophical Society. So I'm joining him.
It'll be the
Venerable
stories and folklore and history of Kuan Yin and the path of compassion that she founded. So it's going to be
There
a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's
I-
gonna be on Zoom as
No,
well.
no, I think it's just here, right? Not on
Right
Zoom.
there. No, it's not on Zoom, it's in person.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
That happens on today at 3:30.
3:30, yes.
I've heard his teaching on this. It's wonderful. And it comes straight from the heart. It's excellent. So,
Thank you.
okay, so now we need to rejoice and dedicate, right? Okay, so
Not a Sharon. Not a Sharon. Aha.
thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Venerable.
This is on page 246 of the prayer book if you can't see the screen. So don't forget to rejoice in your own positive efforts. That's what merits are. So just showing up today and trying to listen, trying to, reflect a little bit, is working on our minds is the most positive thing we can do for all people, for our planet, for everything. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be kindly rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then the long life prayer for His Holiness on page 244. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezi, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, it's on page 234, I think, of the text. Should be pasted in there somewhere. If it's not, just find a different gold prayer. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Lozan father and son, along with the lineage masters. all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth, the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you, Nana. And we also, so we have a pilgrimage being led by Venerable Keldon, who was the teacher here last summer. Where's the information on that?
It's on the website. It's also here, and it comes out in the emails, the
Okay.
newsletters, if you get that. This is not yet linked to the website directly unless you have this link. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. But anyway, but so it's if you're interested at all, time to look is now. So,
What's the date?
I don't know.
well-
Graciela, look at the website and look at the deadlines.
Yeah, the full pilgrimage, these are all the information. So there's two links in here that have a lot of information about it. If you.
And that's on the thubtenkungalink.org website.
Yeah,
So
if you could-
check that all out.
It comes in the email. I don't know if everybody doesn't get the email, I would recommend signing up for the newsletter. You can,
But go to the website, look up this page.
if anybody needs it, I'll,
Yeah,
okay.
it came in the email.
See you, Jack.
Yeah, I'll have to figure out how